Okay. Well, hello and welcome to today's session. I'm really excited to be here and honestly a little bit nervous because this is a new session. So many teachers and families are experiencing something different this year with computer-based testing. And I'm feeling a lot of those emotions that everyone else is feeling of how do we make sure that we're giving kids what we need, but how do we also make sure we have what we need in something that feels really new? So just going to put into the chat. Here is another link to the workbook where you can jot down any notes. You have your own copies of them. Don't worry, I'm not going to look at them. This is for your use only. So a little about me. My name is Sarah Fuentes. I'm the founder of Math Mini Lessons, and I've been a coach and consultant in New York City for 20 plus years, 22, 23 years. 16 of those years were spent in the classroom, always in the South Bronx and Manhattan, and I've taught everything from second all the way to eighth grade. So I've had the luxury of doing all the different grades and seeing what that progression has been like. I think third grade is the only grade I've never taught in 16 years. So here's a little bit of agenda just so you can see what we're going to work on for today. We're going to start off with doing a little bit of mindset work. Then we're going to go into spilling the tea about what we already know in our different settings, get into our challenges and fears, and then actually look at the testing windows and the samples for the exam for today. I want to be as transparent. Everything I find, I share. And if there are things that you have, please share as well. That's how we become stronger together. Now, we already know the best way to learn anything is through experience. So this is about gaining experience with computer-based testing. And that's why I think of it more of like a challenge than a workshop, because a challenge has a different energy to it than a workshop. We attend workshops at school all the time, mostly because we have to, but a challenge is something we step up to. And you chose to be here. You chose to take action. You chose to invest some of your time, and so that is what being in a challenge means. You've accepted it. And challenges are meant to be challenging. So this is going to be a challenge where we unpack those computer-based testing, where we try to figure out what it means for our kids in our classrooms. And there's going to be some independent work, whether sometimes it's going to be reflection and sometimes it's just going to be something for you to engage in to see what you're learning about this test as well. And we're reporting out to each other. So starting off, let's think about it just in general with ELA. We already know there's going to be reading and writing, and that lends itself more to computers than math. That transition is going to be way easier. But even with ELA, kids have learned annotation styles on paper that aren't really going to transfer onto the screen in the same way. Because when I read the directions, it says kids aren't even getting a booklet. It is completely 100% on computer screen. And I was hoping that kids would at least have a copy of the paper exam so they can annotate the way we've been teaching them to do. And now knowing that it's moving completely to digital gave me some pause. So even an ELA teacher is going to have to figure out how do we help annotate and plan for writing on a screen without paper. And the same is true for math. How many test prep sessions have you done with annotation, whether it's cubes or whatever system, teaching kids how to underline and circle and write and actually put their work on a page? Now that doesn't exist in this format. So how do we make sure our students still show what they know, especially if they do it on scrap paper? How do they transfer that on the page so they're not just putting the answer and missing out on those valuable little points here and there? It is so much easier to keep doing what we've already done, what we know how to do because we've done it for years and we're experienced. There is no inexperienced teacher that I've worked with. Everyone has experience in testing and knows what to do. But computer-based testing means a lot of uncertainty, and we're going to have a ton of questions. So again, I appreciate your time and your investment. And this is not a lecture because I am not the all-knowing Wizard of Oz. I am an educator like you. Everything I know is from time and just experience. So I'm going to step into the situation same way as you, just sharing what I know and hoping to learn what you know as well. So I keep an open space. Okay. Okay. So to just start getting our mind right, because anytime you have to start with a challenge, you kind of have to get your energy going so that we're ready for it. So we've all heard the expression, let's get the ball rolling. We've heard that before, right? So we're going to do a little bit of physics here. We're going to look at Newton's first law of motion, which says an object at motion stays in motion and an object at rest stays at rest. We've all heard that before, even if we don't remember the formula for it. And so we're going to think about this in terms of our productivity. We want to get the ball rolling. Even though it's February, make sure we're getting ready for everything happening in May. So here's a formula for momentum. Momentum is mass times velocity. So what is our mass? That's our weight. So if you're nice and heavy, you stay rested. You're just a nice blob. Like right now, I feel like a blob after vacation. And our weight are our assets, the things that we have that we can use to get into momentum, including all these things: our knowledge, our experiences, our expertise, our insights, our network, and all the resources we have. So you have a ton of mass. You have a ton of assets already. Now, to get us into movement, we're going to need some energy. So that's where velocity comes in. And this is our effort to gain speed to move that mass. We're going to gain we're going to use some of that velocity. And that includes, just admitting people in, that includes our decision making. These are our actions, how we use our assets, having clarity about what we're going to do. Taking any action at all gains effort, even if it's the wrong action. Any action will give us information so we can keep on moving forward. The consistency of what we do, our showing up every day and playing big, the risk that we're taking, and our willingness to be uncomfortable. And yes, this feels really uncomfortable right now with a test that seems so uncertain for us. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. Any thoughts resonating about getting into that momentum? So that's what we're really going to do. We're going to all together collectively, we have all of these assets, but now we're going to use all that information to really make sure we're putting the right actions into place. So I'm going to pause here and actually I'll stop sharing for a second, and let's just start spilling the tea. What have you already heard? What are people telling you in your schools? What are you hearing from friends here and there? What are you doing now? What have you learned about computer-based testing so far?
Do you want us to go off mute, Sarah, or type in the chat? You muted.
Yeah, I muted myself there. Whatever you are more comfortable with, if you would rather just put it into the chat, if you would rather just come off mute, however the spirit moves you.
In my school, for our 8th grade, we had our kids take the ELA trial test,
Mhm.
which I guess mimics the one that's going to be the official test in June for ELA. So the kids had around 12 questions. Some of them were multiple choice, some of them were essay questions. We had like a mock session. It took 2 periods. They were not done by those 2 periods. They actually did only few in that time. But it was, I guess, a good thing that we at least tested it out a little bit. And the general feedback of the kids was that they hated.
And it was the same thing, 12 questions like ELA?
Yes. I don't know if that's how it's going to be in June or May, whenever they take it for ELA. But we did not have a math version of it to try out, unfortunately. I
Okay.
hope that that's coming.
I'm going to give you one. Today, you're going to get one. You're going to get actual
Awesome.
things that you can, if you want to use it with your kids, if you want, I'm going to give it to you today, the actual site, so you can play with it. Other
Awesome.
things you guys have heard or seen or experienced so far for computer-based testing?
Our school also did the mock ELA. A lot of kids' computers were not set up properly, so we spent most of the time um, downloading the site properly on their computers. The kids that were able to take it, again, like the other lady said, they didn't finish and they didn't like it. And I also hope that we get a math mock version.
Okay.
I don't, I teach 7th grade, and at my school, like it's a middle school, at my school, the 6th grade teacher actually did the math computer-based testing last year for state test. Um, and she said it was great, but she also loves computer stuff. She does iReady in her classroom. I hate it. The kids hate it. They come to me in 7th grade and are like, are we going to have to do iReady like last year? So she thinks it's going great, but I don't know that her and I don't agree with our philosophy on teaching. So I don't know if it actually went well or not. But this year they're making the 7th and 8th grade also do computer-based testing for math and ELA. So I'm nervous about it because my experience with kids doing computer stuff, I mean, I do still assign Edpuzzles sometimes for like a second teaching or a pre-teaching, and kids just like click and ignore, and they just like computers background noise to them. They don't apply themselves on the computer the way they do on paper. So I don't have hope.
And I'm seeing the same thing. I've heard a lot of teachers tell me, or actually, I hear a big difference between what school leaders are telling me and what teachers are telling me. So school leaders are telling me things like, it's great, it's easy. It's just, and I'm surprised to hear that. And when I've asked some of them, have you done simulations? They're like, yeah, we do computer-based testing. And they're really talking about either iReady or the map. And they're not talking about this. And other schools told me they were planning to do the simulation in January. But it sounds like it didn't really pick up for math, that most people did the ELA one and not math. So I'm a little concerned. And I've had some teachers tell me they didn't even know that this was happening this year for 5th and 8th graders. And I spoke to a science teacher, and it's happening in science too for 5th and 8th grade. So that's something that was a little bit concerning for me when I heard all these different things and teachers going, we know that we just stopped using computers once we got off remote because kids were just playing with it. And when we do the map, they're not really doing it. They're just clicking anything, but there's no work on the page. And I used to see that too. I saw a lot of kids taking it on computers and they're doing it in their head and they're just clicking on. And when we know that the level of mathematics, especially in 7th and 8th grade, cannot be done completely in your head with fidelity, not for an entire exam. So that really, that gave me some pause. So let me jump back in, and here's what I know so far. So we already know this has already been given out to everyone. This is the entire spectrum this year, what's happening next year. My guess is next year they're actually going to do I would say from 5th all the way to 8th. And my prediction is because, think about it, you have a 5th grader this year taking it on computers. In 6th grade, they would not take it on computers. And then in 7th grade, they would take it on computers again. That lack of consistency, if I'm a child, that's going to throw me off. So I'm guessing at some point, New York State will realize that and just say, we might as well, if they took it in 5th grade, they'll be ready for it in 6th. And they'll roll it out for 6th, 7th, and 8th. That is my prediction of what's going to happen. And then by the year after that, it's going to be complete from 3rd grade all the way to 8th grade. And that's happening for ELA, science, and for math. NYSESLAT, they've held it off. They're not going to do it on computers this year. So that was going to happen. They shifted it. I also noticed that they had this really big open window that used to be there for the exam. And now in December, this became the new calendar that was given out on the New York State Education website. So it seems like they have a tighter window than they did before. And so just looking at those dates, they have a certain time period to give the math exam on computers. They have to do the makeups, and they have to have everything graded and completed by a certain date. So I'm wondering if that grading is going to happen internally at schools or how that's going to happen. So I'm still trying to connect with testing coordinators to figure that out. But that seems to be the window for mathematics, for paper-based and for computer-based testing. Okay. So still looks like a pretty big window, April 8th to May 17th. So I would push to ask your schools, what is the actual date that we're doing these things for kids? So they're not taking all their computer tests on the same week and burning out. You want to have enough time around that. And you want to make sure that around break time, math always kind of gets the short end of the stick, taking a test right after the April break. So please ask your school if that's an open window, what are they committing to for the date of the exam, and how can we begin communicating that to all our students so that they're ready. All right, so just self-awareness check. and this is open honesty, where are you in terms of your feelings for this? Like, I'm recognizing a lot of fear coming up when I say these dates. Is that true for other people in this group? Yeah, their anxiety is kind of there. So the sad thing is we can't predict the future, so we're gonna have to make our future and be as prepared as we possibly can. So here's what I have for you guys. So for one, and I put these links down in the workbook for you. There are different videos that talk about the equation tool editor. I highly suggest watching this one where it literally will go into how to use the tool itself. So, and this is something that I'm just putting out there to stay prepared. It's only 6 minutes long. And for your testing administrators, it has all the different features and functions because they have to click off for your kids who have SPED, who have accommodations. They will have to prep that in advance for your children. And we want to make sure everyone's on the same page. So you're just sharing some of that information with them. What I'm going to do with you guys is I want you to actually see the test itself and the platform because it is available, and I'm going to give you that site in a second. When you have the site itself, you get to click what subject, what grade, and they give it from 3rd to 8th. They're giving you all these different samples. There are 4 samples for the exam, as well as a little part that just allows you to click on it if you want to see the actual sampler. So it looks just like this. And you can click any sample you would like, or you can just look at the equation editor sampler. This is a link. I highly suggest you pick a day where you could also share with kids because they can take a sample test just like you guys can and make it low stakes. Hey, we just want you to try it out. I'm not going to take a driver's test without sitting in a car. I need to be able to know where all the things are so that I can feel comfortable. And for you, there's even an answer key. So for whatever exam you take, there will be, it will give you an actual answer key for that as well. And I think they give you an option for language. So I think I saw that somewhere where once you chose a test, yep, there you go. They have different languages here for your kids. So if you have kids taking it in other languages, you can give this to them as well. And that was a positive, so we don't have to worry about that end. Other things that they'll give you, they're going to allow you to, I want you to just familiarize yourself with all the things that are going to pop on that screen. This was the very first thing I saw. There is an answer masking part that you can use. You can make the page bigger or smaller. And there's even a text-to-speech function. And I believe that's more helpful. I think that's just an accommodation for some students. That may not be for all. So again, ask your admin, how do we make sure all our kids are getting the right accommodations? If they have Scribe, they'd probably be in a separate location. There's also going to be, and I'm going to show you what it looks like, a split screen control where the booklet might be on one side and the question on another. This is more so for ELA. I saw it a lot for ELA and science. I really didn't see it too much for math. For math, I just saw one question. But I was playing with this for the longest time, trying to figure out am I getting to the next question? I thought I kept hitting this and the page just kept getting bigger and it wasn't getting to the next question. So even I was sitting there trying to figure out what am I doing? So giving is just like any manipulative. You put a toy in front of a kid or a tool, what's the first thing they do? They play with it, trying to figure it out. You don't want that to be the day of the test. So let them get all their wiggles out to try and figure out what it is. But I want you guys to experience that too. And also what they're given at the bottom of a screen is going to be critical. So they will have eliminators, highlighters. There is a protractor and ruler. And for math, there's also going to be a calculator for 7th and 8th grade. When we look at the directions, I see that they're counting that all kids are using this, but kids can verbally ask for a physical calculator. So I want to make sure kids understand that right, that you have to have them available. So if they say they would like the calculator, you can give them a physical calculator as well. But again, this is something kids have to know what's happening here. They could also change the background color, and that might be another place where they're playing when they're feeling overwhelmed. So again, we just want to make sure they have all this information that you have it as well. And this is the piece de la resistance. This is the equation editor where they will show and put their answers and their work. And this is for a 1-point question. They're just putting their answer, but knowing how they're going to use these buttons to either write an equation, write an expression, they can physically write it, how they write a fraction. So everything is here for them. but they will have to be familiar with this part. So making sure they see it. I'd almost make this into a poster so that it's not brand new to them and they can figure out how they would press press those buttons. And for a 2-point, it looks like this, where they will have a scrap page to show your work. And again, the answer one on the bottom. So again, this is just something I want you all to experience, to play with, so you can see what it looks like. So I'm gonna put this in the chat for you right now. And I linked it in the workbook as well, so that you can see what it looks like. I'm just gonna click on to 7th grade for a second, and you can see all these same things will pop up as soon as you come onto it. So all the little directions, they'll tell you if you're online. So I guess this will be important in case your school's Wi-Fi goes out. They'll need to be able to see whether or not they're online. And when they start it, they'll have all these different choices. So again, playing with, do I want blue in the background? Try and take it like if you're a kid. Like you think of your kid in your class and try to take it as if you were them. What would they do? What would they press? How would they do this? And because we're going to be true to form, you can have scrap paper if you'd like, to just have an idea of what this will look like. But you can play with this and see what it's like, how to move different things on the page. So you can note with that what it looks like to take notes. That button, I didn't know this, but you can move these. The first time I took it, it just covered the page. And I was like, this is frustrating. And the same thing with the reference sheet. Notice how it will cover. So you can move this and make it smaller. So letting kids know that the text won't look smaller, but at least they can pull what they need and close out. And it's only a few sample questions. These are all release questions. So if you want this button up here, we'll just move it forward, so you can try it and take the exam itself. And again, you will also you can copy down the answer key. So just remember what sample you're taking, sampler 2. You can go back to the link and you can look at the answer key to see what they expected on a page like this. All right, so let me stop sharing again so I can pause for a sec. All right, that was a ton of information because I really want to get this tool out to you today so you can start playing with it and go into it. Once you have that, I think that's pretty much what I want you to experience for today, because there's a lot of information here. Okay, so with that, whew, how are you guys feeling right now? What are you thinking? What's on your mind?
Fitting in time to practice and have the kids play with it and have an admin be supportive.
Can you say more about having admin be supportive?
Well, I'm a charter school, as you well know, and I would be hoping that during our test prep that we'd be doing more of this stuff, but we're not. We're doing paper and pencil and systems. So I have to figure out where to do this. And hopefully that they will, they've also we're 3 days of instruction a week, so that's a lot. So just figuring out the time to get it in. I know where I can get it in right now. Hopefully my co-teacher will agree with me, because we've moved to stations now. So I'll just make it be a station, even though it's not necessarily based on what the skills we're still teaching, but just so they can have practice.
A few things you said are really resonating hard with me. It makes me think, one, how do we make sure we have the time, but what happens when our support team at the school isn't on the same page with us? So if you're still doing test prep on paper and not giving some time to screen, are we setting up kids to be successful in this exam? And yeah, go ahead, sweetie.
That's the other question I'm trying to figure out. Like, even if I don't, we said to them that they need to be practicing. We've said that we want them to be using the computers during our test prep time. But I guess I'm trying to figure out how I can, when I get back, how I can have them to just implement that during my test prep time without getting pushback.
Mhm.
And having all of us do it, not just me with my select group of kids. But I just talking about it out loud, I'm thankful that we're doing this. I can figure out how I can do in the classroom, but doing it on the test prep day, since they're taking that day away from us, will be a better place to do it.
The second thing I heard you say were topics and the educator guide. And I think earlier we asked, the question was about the actual test length and format. So I'm going to put this in the chat for you too. This is always my Bible whenever I'm planning for assessment stuff. Let me move this over a little bit. So just so we can see, for this tells us exactly what's going to be on the test. And for 8th grade, the shift remains higher focus on geometry, and systems of equation is, again, a post-test standard. So many 8th grade teachers are focusing on that. It's not even going to be tested. It is post-test. And they also added at the bottom of this to assess all the 7th grade geometry skills. So everything that should have been done the year before. And I'm noticing again that on the exam, let me go to 8th grade. So for the question was how many questions, it is going to be 38 questions on 7th and 8th grade, with 6 constructor response that are 2 points, 3 1 points, and a 3-point question. So that's multiple choice and all the constructor response. So 48 questions. Is not going to be a 12-question computer exam. It's going to be exactly like what we see on paper for the entire design. But when I move to blueprint for 8th grade, notice geometry is about 30 to 40% of the exam itself. That is a big shift. It used to be mostly algebra. And now notice EE and geometry for 8th grade are exactly the same. For 7th grade, there's very little geometry. Most of that geometry is going to be tested in 8th grade. But their focus will be a little bit more on statistics, which means everything that 6th grade statistics had, count on doing some review for 7th grade as well. So I use this again, as my Bible to see where should my focus be when I'm preparing for the exam. And I think I've had a lot of teachers say that they're still doing systems, and because they've always done it. And I continue to scream from the mountaintops, stop in 8th grade, stop it. It is not going to be tested. We're taking time away, focus on geometry a lot more than what we're doing. So I wanted to make sure you had this in here. For 7th grade, same thing. You can see they've added all the post-test to be assessed in 7th grade. All the variability, all the distributions, all the probability stuff is being added in when we know that a lot of 6th grade teachers don't get to it. And so again, all the geometry is post for 7th grade. So just giving a lot of that information so that you have it. Okay.
So question, I'm sorry, did you say that 8th grade test is going to have the 7th grade geometry on the test?
7th grade skills will be tested on the 8th grade exam.
Okay.
I'm not trying to stress you on it, and it's stressful, but I just want you to know that some of those questions will come up. And I'm happy to always share those resources with you, because I can show you what I did with some of my 7th grade stuff and how I plan and prepped for that. Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions or things popping up before we jump into an open VIP area? Okay. Okay. So hearing this part, is there something, and I heard, thank you for sharing, at least that we're having this discussion is at least helpful. Even if it's stressful, we're addressing it and we're having the discussion. For the next half hour, I'm going to just have open coaching time where any of your questions can be answered. If you're ready to pop off and you want to jump right in and start playing with the exam itself, feel free. But if you want to stay on because you still have one-off questions, we have 30 minutes for just VIP on-the-spot coaching and direct support.
Thank you. I'm gonna navigate the test and do the sample, because I think tomorrow I'll probably take the extra half hour after I've looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't even looked at the electronic test at all. So
Yeah, play with it, experience it, think of it as an adult, think of it as a kid, and definitely come tomorrow telling me what you're seeing and what you're noticing.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to spend some time with the links now, and then I will see you tomorrow.
Absolutely. And feel free to share with any other teacher that needs support. I am not going to hoard knowledge. So once I
Okay.
give out,
Yeah.
I'll share the video as well. You can share it with whoever you'd like. Invite them to come if they have more questions. I'm here to help. That's the only reason why I'm doing this, is to
Awesome.
help
I
other
appreciate it.
teachers.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye.